Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Front Page, a show brought to you by Cuyahoga Community College and is put on by Spectrum, Verizon Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. One of the important pieces of the economic puzzle in Cuyahoga County is the Cuyahoga Economic Development Agency, which is part of an operation at 2 State Street, which deals with the retention, the expansion, and also the attraction of new businesses into Cuyahoga County. And we are delighted to have in the studio today their new executive director, Michael Miller, who is a Southern Cuyahoga graduate and is joining us today to talk about the agency, but also what is on the economic horizon right now, especially with the decision about Micron back in the fall, as well as an event that they have in a couple of weeks with an Auburn favorite, Bill Fulton, who's keynoting their 2023 Economic Forecast Luncheon. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And more importantly, congratulations on the new job.
Thank you.
So how are you getting acclimated to
it? Well is probably the most blunt way to put it. We certainly at CEDA have gone through some challenges over the last year or so here, but our staff is really starting to ramp up, and the way I've been viewing it is kind of CEDA 2.0. So we've been reevaluating a lot of the internal decision-making we've been doing at our office and the programs we're a part of, and looking to really bring the most value we can to the community at large, specifically the business community.
So let's deal with some basics, because we haven't had, I don't think the last person that was on representing CEDA was Tracy Verrier, and she's been gone for almost a year and a half or longer than that. And I know there was an interim in between the two of you. But let's talk about CEDA in general. For those who may not know what is at 2 State Street with you, what is the Cuyahoga Economic Development Agency?
So the Cuyahoga Economic Development Agency was put together a number of years ago to really consolidate all the economic development efforts happening within the county itself, specifically for private enterprise as it is. So regardless of size, small or large, our office works with business owners and employers to take advantage of available grant opportunities and incentives that are available at the local, state, regional, and federal levels here. Part of that is also connecting them to other resources they may not have known in their own backyard. So if one business owner is looking to sell and another is looking to expand, we have those connections to put them together there.
So in essence, you are, as you were originally founded, and whether it's 2.0 now, it hasn't changed, I don't believe, you are the economic one-stop for Cuyahoga County. So somebody comes to your office, you can put them in touch with the proper officials in Jenny Haynes' office at the city or Steve Lynch's office at the county and everything in between.
That is exactly it.
And you're still administering, you're the staff for CCIDA and ADA, Auburn Industrial Development Authority, and Cuyahoga County Industrial Development Authority, correct?
Yes.
So that is a role that, are you the staff?
We are the staff. So
I met you personally. Are you?
I am. I not only serve as the executive director for CEDA, but also the Cuyahoga IDA and the Auburn IDA as well.
So how large a staff do you have?
So we have, aside from myself here, is we have 2 specialists. One really focused on large business attraction and retention. The other is a small business specialist who's working with smaller sized businesses and entrepreneurs. We also have a marketing manager.
Who's here with us today?
That's correct. And we also have our office manager / bookkeeper and our analyst who really provide support.
And I think people may know who your first 2 staff people. Do you want to tell what they do and who they are?
Sure. So Maureen Reeser is probably a very familiar name in the community.
She's been with CEDA for
a number of years, and she really focuses on our large businesses within the area, and she's a critical part to the efforts we have related to the IDAs and helping to bring those organizations to the IDAs to take advantage of those benefits there, but also looking for opportunities to keep our large employers within the area. So if business issues arises, she's on the phone with them and helping to connect them to the right resources.
And who's your other staff person?
Paul Vigiano, who joined our firm back in October here. He is an Auburn native and a longtime resident of Auburn in the past. He's really come back and he's taken off. We're very proud of him.
So he's your hire. Maureen Reister was here before. Mr. Vigiano since you
Yes.
came aboard. You are a not-for-profit.
hmm
How is your board structured?
So our board is structured of 15 members, and it's comprised of a variety of folks with differing backgrounds. We have a number of ex officio members to make sure there's representation of county and city interests. So a couple of those members would include Jeff Digert, who's the city manager of Auburn. We also have Aileen McNabb Coleman. She's a Cayuga County legislator representing the county's interests within CEDA. But we also have our board president, Kevin Miles. He is the head of entrepreneurship and business at Wells College. Some other members I'd like to call out is Demetrius Murphy. He's our banking representative. We have Christina Brooks. She is our farming representative on the board as well. To go on, we also have Ryan Pine. He has not only been a member of CEDA, but the chamber in the past as well.
Tennessee Capital.
Yes, he's bringing a pretty extensive background, not just within the chamber and economic development, but his knowledge of the financial markets as well.
And some of those positions you mentioned, the early on ones, those are by title because that was how it was originally set up. Am I correct? That has not changed with the changes that occurred in the last year. They're by position, correct?
Correct.
Because you still get some money from the county, correct? Is that the bulk of where you're?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So how much do you get roughly from the county?
Our contract through this year is $375,000.
And that has stayed steady. I know there was a debate in December about increasing or decreasing, depending on which member of the legislature, but you are still at the same number that you've been. And so where does that money go? Is that just for overhead and staff, or does it go into your new marketing as you're trying to market Cayuga County?
So the money primarily is going to our staff expense, which is truly our largest one, being at essence a service firm for the organization here. Everything below that is going towards rent, benefits, and everything else that's going in that. And part of it is our marketing activities as well, which we're looking to increase in more creative ways given some of our budget constraints. But we do feel we have the necessary resources and skills on staff to reach a broader audience and really get our brand back out there.
So we mentioned Tracy very early on, and she was your predecessor 2 ago. At that time, there was a different setup. You've mentioned 2.0. How are there's still Cayuga Strategic Solutions, that's the overarching area, but Amy Fuller, who was on a week ago, she does chamber things. She's the executive director there. You're the executive director of CEDA. How do you interact, and how are you different than what you were if we said this was January 1st, 2020?
So it's a little difficult for me to provide insight because I wasn't there back in 2020, but
you still get blamed for it.
That's fine. The thing I want to make sure is very clear is that despite having 2 separate executive directors for our organization, we're still in the same building. We are in conversation every day. So as we have areas where we can collaborate, we continue to collaborate with the chamber just as they collaborate with us. I think the difference here in separating the position that was overseeing both organizations is now you have 2 people who can dedicate their full attention to each organization to better empower those organizations to serve the community.
If you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about you. You're
Sure.
originally from Southern Cayuga, born and raised there.
Yes.
Went to Southern Cayuga schools. Where did you have a bachelor's and a master's?
I do.
Where are they from?
St. Joseph's University, Philadelphia.
And what are they in?
I got my undergrad in finance, and I got my MBA with a concentration in finance.
And before you came to CEDA, what were you doing?
I had a couple of different things going on before I came to CEDA. When I got out of school from Philadelphia, I went to work for Envisage Information Systems, which was a software tech firm located out of Ithaca, but founded by 2 gentlemen from Southern Cayuga, Steph McGonigal and Rob Jetty. They had started this firm back in the early 90s, but was hitting critical mass by the time I joined, and I learned a great deal there. It was, in my opinion, something of a startup where you had exposure to a number of different functions within the company, and I'll always cherish the time I had there. We were bought out by TIAA in 2014, and with any acquisition, there's changes in leadership and structure. So once I left Envisage, I went to work.
TIAA, the retirement system? Okay.
Yes.
Is everybody apparently on the, not any of the students here, but everybody else who's
Sure.
past this wall?
Sure.
Here.
Sure. And that's who we were primarily serving at the time, was the retirement market, and TIAA was our largest client.
So were you doing analysis for them at that point, or were you doing mergers and acquisitions work?
I had an interesting role there where I was wearing a lot of different hats, where I was supporting our program management office, our COO, and eventually our management team there on a variety of different things. I was fortunate to be a part of the internal due diligence team in our acquisition by TIAA. Following that, I was providing a lot of support to our third-party business segment in putting together our financial plan, forecasting, as well as kind of business case assessment for R&D projects we were taking a look at.
And have family in Southern Cuba?
Yes.
Married? Children?
I am, happily.
All right, and how many children and what ages?
I have 4 children, 3 boys, 1 girl. It jumps from 13 on down to 5, 3, and 1.
Okay, and which is a nice gap in there. Part of the volunteer fire department system down there. Are you on any other not-for-profits?
Not at this time.
What? Your plate's full?
Just a little bit.
So let's talk about the plate being full.
Mm-hmm.
So at this particular stage, how are you getting to know? You may have known because of what you did with your firm before. You may have known Southern Cuyahoga County fairly well. We're a long and narrow county, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
How are you getting to know the other entities that you have to work with in Cuyahoga County?
What this role and this organization has really provided for me are introductions that I think commonly I wouldn't be able to have. So the importance of economic development is for everyone's interest. So that it's not just business owners, it's policymakers as well. If we have a good, thriving business community, that means increased taxes. It means we can better invest in ourselves, specifically our infrastructure and our schools.
So we should just clarify that.
Sure.
Increased tax revenue, not increasing taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
That is a very good point.
Okay. So, what are local business leaders? Forget policy leaders, and I know you were here with Brian Durant last week with Mr. Pine. What are business leaders telling you at CEDA, either the state of the economy or what they need or what they see as opportunities or threats in Cuyahoga County?
So the probably most predominant issue that I've heard from business owners today is workforce. There's not only just a shortage of available talent out there, there's a skills gap as well. So for us to be able to better understand what those gaps are and to connect them to the resources we have, specifically the one-stop shop that is Cuyahoga County Works and Kelly King's department as well. So we're looking to better bridge the gap on that end, and also seeing the number of dollars coming in from the state as well for workforce development.
So in reading, I think Kiplinger Washington letter in the first week of January, their lead-in for their 100th anniversary newsletter was something to the effect: if you thought the employment was going to, the employment problem was going to solve, where workers were going to get back in the workforce in 2023, that ain't the case. Is that what you're hearing?
That is, it's hard to separate between what employers are saying and what employees are saying. So COVID really shifted a lot of workers' priorities, place of where they're working, the value of what they're doing, and what it means at the end of the day, aside from inflationary pressures, which have forced companies to concede in some areas. So it's been a little bit.
Benefits, hours, work, whether you work on site or not.
That's it.
Does that change as we, the president said we're out of COVID, but as the economy shifts back to a non-COVID centric system that we might have had maybe 18 months ago, do you think it is going to be easier for employers to find employees and not have to make concessions?
It's hard to say, but I do think we are moving in that direction as things are continuing to morph as it is right now. So we're still in a high inflationary period right now. It's still a tight labor market, but we do see some breaks going on in that area. Businesses are starting to reinvest. Workers are coming back to the office as, coming out of COVID. There's a lot of isolation going with it, but they're looking for a lot of hybrid models as well, and getting employers to get on board with that. Some are a little more traditional, and if you're unwilling to rise to the current state, it's difficult.
So what's roughly the unemployment rate for Cuyahoga County right now?
It's about 3% right now, which is...
So that's below what is the standard, which would be, 4.5, as we were all taught in economics classes?
Thereabout.
So there's still there's not a pool out there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking to any employers who are saying, hey, I can find people without a problem?
Not one. I haven't run into one employer who has said, what are you talking about? It's similar to daycare, which is another issue that employers have brought up, is it's just not there.
So let's take the three pieces that, as I would say, a three-legged stool that CEDA was originally known for, and I'm assuming it's still known. But let's talk about the idea, how do you help a brand new business, or try to attract a new business to Cuyahoga County?
So what we have to do from a large business perspective is really take a good inventory of the assets we have, and more importantly, what is the type of business we're looking to attract to Cuyahoga County. Historically, over the last couple of decades here, I think the mindset with so many businesses leaving and the population dropping is we'll take whatever we can get. But we're shifting the mindset to say we want to have a purposeful approach in the type of company we want to come here. We want to make sure what matches our workforce, and that the business coming to our locale is committed to our community.
So what type of business is that right now? Or types of?
Well, advanced manufacturing, without question, is a key asset in industry within Cuyahoga County here.
So plastics?
Without question.
Steel, any other industries that you think there's the possibility to land here?
So those are some of the key ones we have on deck right now. What we're trying to get a little more information around is, with Micron coming into town, we do want to complement the supply chain companies that will be coming through here. Micron is a number of semiconductor companies landing within the corridor, that being Global Foundries, Edwards Vacuum, and Wolfspeed. So there's a number in upstate New York here. And the tag-along businesses, many of which include manufacturing, to make sure those facilities are running smoothly and they're getting all the components necessary to build out those products.
So let's talk. We'll come back to the other two legs of CEDA. Let's talk about Micron.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone sees it as a game changer. Do you think there's enough details out there now that this is a game changer for Cuyahoga County?
Without question, this is going to impact Cuyahoga County. How we have been thinking about it with the many partners we've been in discussions with is, do we want this forced upon us, that being urban sprawl and everything else that comes with that, or do we want to really control what Cuyahoga County is going to be with the impact of the number of folks moving to this area here?
So I'm assuming it's the latter.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that?
So right now what we're doing is we've set up a number of committees to really assess what do we have here in Cuyahoga County. Our housing committee in particular, which is being headed up by Jenny Haynes, is taking a large inventory of what we have in Auburn. What do we have up on north? Along 31, which ties directly over to the White Pine site where Micron's being built. Knowing that's a short distance, commuters...
Shorter from the northern part of the county versus the southern part of the county.
It is.
Okay.
Much shorter.
About 58 minutes from here. this campus. A couple people have figured it out.
It's a little bit less from our setup there, but we do know it's more or less a very direct ride. So
So are you looking so if you're looking at housing, let's take that one,
Mhm.
and I know a little bit about what that committee's been working on. Are you looking at improving housing stock, making sure there's development for housing? Because the plan is that it's going to attract 10,000 workers, which I don't think we've all got in our head. I mean, that'd be literally, Auburn's 27,000 people. That 10,000 people, new people to this area, is a lot. So, what is on the housing perspective? What can Cayuga County gain from that?
Do you mind clarifying?
Are we a commuter community, for example? Are we a commuter community, or are we a place where secondary service businesses to Micron, I hate this analogy, but I will still give it, is as someone mentioned to me, it's like the California Gold Rush in 1848. It's the secondary businesses. I don't mean the bars and everything that went along, but I'm talking about Levi. I'm talking about those people who provide shovels and sifters and everything else. Is that what are you looking at?
So we do not want to be the bedroom community. We want to be a partner in the opportunity that is before us here. So we want to make sure, one, the businesses we have existing here in Cayuga County can actually service Micron and building out that facility there. So as you mentioned earlier, our plastic industry is strong. We have Nucor Steel here as well. There's a lot of money going into building out this facility, and Micron themselves have said they want to work with local businesses in building this out. So one, we want to make sure we're positioning our existing industry here to service Micron. We do want to accommodate the number of folks coming to move here to not only work at Micron directly, but on the tertiary businesses as well. So,
do you think that's where the big benefit to Cayuga County is, the tertiary businesses?
I do. We do really need to solidify what those exact businesses are there. This is where we're playing a bit of competition with the other counties in the surrounding area, Oswego in particular, but it's a very friendly competition in my point of view.
Well, knowing some people up in economic development up in Oswego County, they're much closer, and they have a lot of acreage that they had purchased unrelated to this decision before that's allowable for construction. If it's for these businesses, not necessarily homes.
Right.
Do you see this as a done deal, that there's nothing going to stumble? Are you seeing anything to worry about on the deal itself? I know there's been some questions in the last couple of weeks on that front.
So that's been one thing I would like to tamp down here, especially with some of the layoffs that Micron had announced. Keeping in mind this is a global company. They have investors the world over. They knew they were going to have to make some hard decisions months and months and months in advance.
So there's been some decisions made in Idaho.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So knowing that they are looking well into the future, they're not looking 1 year down the road. Part of their plan is looking 20 years down the road. So I think the community needs to collectively buy into the idea that this is a great opportunity, believe it, and how do we partner with them to take advantage of this generational change.
So that leads to two questions you just raised. You may not have thought you did, but they're 20-year plan. So 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how do you think Cayuga County, if you do everything that you need to do in your job and everybody works with you on it, how do you see Cayuga County change?
So this is what we're trying to look into, that crystal ball of what is it that Cayuga County wants to be. What is it we want to be? And more of it is taking full stock of who we are right now. We know we're a community that has tremendous natural resources and assets. We're full of rich history. But we have had a number of businesses leaving over the last couple of decades and declining population. Nobody I've spoken to wants that anymore. So we're looking at this of we want to build on the opportunity that's been presented here. How do we better lift up the assets we do have to market those for communities that people want to come to, not just from a tourism perspective, but live, work, and play here as well.
So we talked about maybe about 10 minutes ago this idea of what you're talking to employers about. So the worry that I keep hearing about is that skill set, is that we cannot meet what the overall Micron plan is. And by the way, there will be other businesses and existing businesses that will still need those skills. How do you deal with that? Not necessarily a CEDA, though maybe it is a CEDA effort. How do you deal with that issue?
So that's the nice thing about having this whole workforce committee set up, is what we're doing right now, being led by Kelly King, is taking a full stock inventory of all of what Cayuga County has from a workforce perspective, identifying gaps. What programs do we have in development through the college, through BOCES, and our schools as well?
Will that information be released to the public and rolled out to the public, or is that internal?
Right now, I think we're trying to pull together all of that information. It's my feeling it should be public, so we and our partners, as we're trying to have a really good understanding of what is comprising Cayuga County, we know what that is. And a good deal of that information you can find from public sources, but to have that internal analysis of everything out there will be very helpful.
All right, we're going to have to get to the other two parts of the stool,
all right.
Retention and expansion, because you do have an event coming up. That was the original reason we asked you to come on, besides introducing you. You have your 2023 Economic Forecast Luncheon. When is it?
It is on March 30th.
Where is it?
Springside Inn.
And so this is a luncheon. Who is your speaker?
So this is a luncheon. It's going from 11:30 to 1:30. I will be presenting in portion at the event, but we also have our guest speaker, William Fulton, who's an Auburn native, but he's also worked in economic development all over the country.
Cayuga grad, I should say, on there. Yes. And he was here in October speaking at Willard Chapel. Very entertaining, but also has a very wide swath of knowledge when it comes to economic development and just development itself. So he will be presenting that day. How much does it cost to attend?
$45.
And how can do you have to? So normally, if you were just in the old setup, I'd ask if you were a chamber member. Can anybody come to this event?
Yes, this
so
is
who
open.
Do you want to come to the event?
To me, the most value may come from our businesses within the area to learn from a very well recognized economic planner of excuse me, of how to really think about the year ahead here, and for policymakers as well to take note.
And how can you register?
If you go to our website, there should be a banner right popping up as soon as you click on it. If not, it's right under our event screen.
All right. 30 minutes goes very fast. I'd love to have you back in the fall to talk about the other two legs, retention and expansion, but more importantly, give us another update on what you're doing at CEDA and also where Micron is in this whole position.
It'd be my pleasure.
And our guest has been Michael Miller, the new head of the Cayuga Economic Development Agency. We want to thank him for his time over the last half hour to talk about CEDA and their work. We'll be back in just a moment. We'll talk a little bit more about Micron, but our main focus with Cayuga Community College President Brian Durant is an update on the college and several projects it is working on. We'll be back this Tuesday with Cayuga County Sheriff Brian Schenk and his new undersheriff for a law enforcement update. And Father Vasil Kopelnik of St. Peter and Paul Ukrainian Church will be here as well to talk about the refugees who've come to Auburn from the war in Ukraine, which is now in just over its 1 year mark, and relief efforts that are going back to Ukraine. In the coming weeks, we'll have Cayuga County District Attorney Brittany Antonacci, Cayuga County Legislative Chairman David Gould, City Manager Jeff Dygert, Locke Phillips, a film director, as well as Tyburn Academy Principal Connor O'Donnell to talk about Tyburn Academy. And we'll have the folks in from the Gavra Center again to give us an update. If you'd like to send us your thoughts for guests or questions for them, you can always send them to cozguitho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. Stick around for Brian Durant. He'll be on in just a moment. Otherwise, have a good night, have a great tomorrow, and we will see you back here on Thursday.